Good morning, everyone. All right, asking and maximizing. The conditions of asking and maximizing. All right, has anyone ever been to the Continental Divide, Yellowstone? I know you have with your Yellowstone, Colorado. All right, the Continental Divide. It's so cool. All precipitation that is landing on the eastern side of the ridge will flow east and eventually make its way to the Atlantic Ocean. All precipitation landing on the western side of the ridge flows west and eventually makes its way to the Pacific Ocean.
Wow, who knew?
It's
There's one in Alaska, too.
I never knew that.
well, yeah, because it's a whole.
Yeah,
It's
I
the
remember one in Alaska. Is it the
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
It's
No.
it's where two mountain ranges, and so
It's in Alaska.
it's such a cool phenomenon. Okay, so it's really hard, although it's hard to believe, that difference of a fraction of an inch at the point of origin will eventually result in the difference of an entire ocean. Just very slight, right? And although you may not realize that every moment of our lives, we are balanced on our own continental divide. Each second of our lives, we walk along a ridge, a knife edge that divides it into two entirely different potential dimensions. Because that is exactly how the law of cause and effect works. The difference in one step, one choice, one word, one little thought form at the point of origin can make a literal world of difference in our lives. On one side of the world is the world of ordinary struggle and uncertainty. On the other side, stretching away in all of its majesty, lies the world of self-empowerment, the world of self-creation, the dimension of the miraculous, where dreams unfold with perfect precision. On this side lies heaven on earth. Each moment as we walk this ridge that is our life, we make a choice. Whether we're aware of it or not, each moment we choose to pour the water of our thoughts down one side or the other. In the most practical sense possible, we choose each second to either remain in the dimension of the ordinary or to enter the dimension of the miraculous. Said a bit differently, Ernest Holmes once wrote, "Our world offers us the opportunity to cooperate with it on a spiritual basis or to argue with it on a material basis. If we do the first, we have an abundant life with great peace. If we resist and argue with the circumstances, we find our troubles heap themselves upon us in greater measure." I don't know about you, but I'd rather live in the dimension where the miraculous, where I have an abundant life with great peace, instead of the mundane and ordinary, where my troubles heap themselves upon me even in greater measure. How about you guys? Yeah? That sound better? Me too. Woo. So this month, we are looking at a profound spiritual teaching, really a roadmap for living in the dimension of the miraculous, for living an abundant life with great peace. This roadmap is embedded in Jesus' miracle of the loaves and fish. In our terrific book, which is right here, is it? Yes. Okay, good. In our terrific book this month entitled 12 Conditions of a Miracle by Todd Michael, it is suggested that in the miracle of the loaves and fish, which was always viewed by biblical scholars as having particular meaning, Jesus taught us 12 conditions or states of consciousness that when operating at the same time, the miraculous occurs. And Michael translated the text from its original Greek. He was a smart guy, because I certainly can't do that. So he got the true and deep and rich meaning. And I'm going to throw out something here too. If you want a different perspective on the Bible, which was just a true education for me, there's a book called Don't Know Much About the Bible. And it's written by the same gentleman who wrote Don't Know Much About History. And it's kind of an abbreviated version of you can go through it pretty quickly. But it's fascinating because there's so many things in there that I had no clue, and it's based on facts from original translations and things. So it's a very interesting read. But I digress. All right, so once brought into the operation at the same time, we're talking about the 12 conditions. These conditions form a kind of engine with 12 cylinders. Okay, so the men aren't here to enjoy that, but I know we women understand how how engines work, right? When we have all 12 cylinders fire together, the power they generate is beyond comprehension. Last week we looked at the first two conditions. Emptiness creates a vacuum through meditation and by physically creating space, and alignment with divine love by being moved with compassion. So we're creating a space and we're also moved with compassion. And today we're going to look at conditions 3 and 4. And since they really are really juicy and meaty, we're going to get right into them. So, condition 3, asking. At Matthew 14:15, we read, "When it was evening, his disciples came to him and said, 'This is a lonely place, and it is getting late. Dismiss the people so that the men may go to the villages and buy food for themselves.'" So, clearly Jesus' disciples knew that the natives were getting restless, so to speak. They were hungry and they needed food, and the disciples, not having any food to give, relayed the information to their leader, Jesus. In other words, information about what was needed was put into words and effectively communicated. This is big, because I think a lot of times we don't communicate our wants or our needs very effectively. If you want your needs fulfilled, you must make them known. And I'll be the first to share that I have known people who get very mad. My mother was one who we should have known that she wanted something a certain way, but she never told us, Well, I wanted this for my birthday. Well, did you tell anybody? Well, no. It's important to make it your needs known. All right, you have to ask in order to receive. And some of us feel bad about asking. Some of us feel bad about asking, like we don't deserve to ask. We need to get over that one. Formulating an effective and appropriate ask establishes the third condition of your miracle. Holmes in The Science of Mind, referring to Matthew 7:7, which reads, "Ask and it shall be given unto you, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you, for whoever asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks the door is open." Holmes writes about that. We now come to a definite teaching regarding prayer. We shall receive that for which we ask. It shall be opened to us when we knock, and we shall find that for which we are searching. This teaching implies the definitiveness of spirit and mental work. God is intelligent mind and spirit, and there is a direct response from this universal intelligence to our intelligence. If we ask for bread, we shall not receive a stone. But we are told we must ask believing if we are to receive. Here again, we are meeting the law of cause and effect in the teachings of Jesus. Jesus points to the fact that if we, being human and consequently limited, know how to give good gifts to our children, how much more will God give good gifts to those who ask? And he explicitly tells us to ask directly for what we want. Of course, we don't ask in new thought. We accept. We accept that it's already done in the mind of spirit. But in this context, the word ask simply means to make your desire, your intention known. A little clarity here. We need to be clear on what it is we want. The most important concept to keep in mind while formulating a request is this. It is not the thing. It is what? It is the feeling. It is the feeling. It works like this. If you think that what you want is a house, you need to carefully look beneath the desire. Make absolutely certain that you know how you want to feel as well as what you want to experience. I did this with a job. I had several jobs where I had attracted very strong women who did not have families and couldn't understand that I had to have a little give and take with children, and they just were not they were very ego driven. And so I got very clear on what I wanted it to feel like when I walked in to an office, and I manifested an office with the county that the men had no egos. They were constantly promoting the women and saying they're the ones doing the work, even though they could have accepted all the praise. It was It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And so it's really important to know how you want it to feel when you walk in to a home, an office, a store. Even if you're returning something, imagine how it feels to go in and have them go, "We're happy to take that back." And it's so powerful. So if you desire to own a house, for example, you are really looking for the experience of living in the house, for the feelings of security and the pleasure the house will allow you to have deep within. I think that's why I was attracted to the house we bought recently. Well, we didn't buy it recently, but the house we bought 20 years ago had a front porch. And I could see us sitting out there on the front porch waving to our neighbors. It felt like home, felt like Americana. That's what I wanted. When you formulate your demand, make sure you connect with the essence, that feeling. If you focus only on getting a house and not the spirit that the house will confer, you're putting the cart before the horse. Don't be surprised if it doesn't give you what you want. Have you ever asked for a very specific thing only to find that when you got it, you have no feeling of satisfaction? I've had that happen a couple of times. Has anybody else had that?
They still have price tags on them.
You take them, oh, they're still in your closet. They still have price? Yeah, you wanted something, like a piece of clothing, and then you get it home and you just look at it. You think it's going to do it, but then, yeah, I think you're right. I probably have a couple of those in my closet too, now that you mentioned it. If you ask for a very specific house, you might get it only to find that you end up feeling frustrated, confused, and angry. Conversely, if you start by asking for the feeling of security and pleasure that form an essence of your desire, the universe will supply you with a house that will provide you with a deep sense of fulfillment, security, and joy. In How to Use the Science of Mind, Holmes writes, all statements in treatment, which is our affirmative prayer, must be felt with a feeling beyond words, beyond statements and phrases. It is from the essence of this feeling of life and spirit that the mind draws its conclusions, which, presented to the mind principle, causes it to react in an affirmative rather than negative way. Remember, it is our job to know the what. It is God's job to know the how. We don't have to know how. And that's a hard one for me. I want to know how. I want to know all the steps leading up to the how, and I want to see when the how is going to be done. And I have to remember. And I have great people reminding me. You don't have to know how it's going to happen. It's just all going to happen. And it always does. And then I'm always amazed. Wow, that just worked itself out. Let the universe handle the details. Let the universe handle the details. Seek the feeling and let the universe determine the best way to manifest that feeling. Continuing with the example of the house, imagine that you are designing a custom-built house. Initially, you're very pleased that you can decide every single detail. However, early on in the process, you realize that you really don't know what you're doing. I've had this happen too. You don't know how to choose every doorknob or light fixture and molding in order to create the house that's going to make you feel happy. In truth, you know virtually nothing about the specifics and see that your uneducated decisions may possibly result in a mess. Your initial excitement evaporates and you feel depressed or maybe cheated. Now imagine that you go about things a little differently. This time, you wisely formulate your request as follows. I see a home which will bring great peace and mind and satisfaction. Instead of trying to do it yourself, you describe the atmosphere and the general feel of your dream home to the most experienced master designer that you can find. And in my mind pops up, love it or list it. Hilary Farr, let's have her come in and just do it, right? This time the designer handles all the details, relying on his or her wisdom and experience. This house, the house that results, is extraordinarily beautiful and surpasses even your best expectations. Of course, in treatment, this is why we always say, this or something better. This or something better. You end up feeling immense pleasure. Understand that the universe, God, is the master designer. Trust that it will provide for your true needs without your help. Get your bloated nothingness out of the way. We've heard that. And you will end up with a satisfying reality every single time. Ernest Holmes writes in The Science of Mind, if we wish to pray for a home, we should take the idea of a house with us into the silence and meditate upon its actual being. We should believe that we have and own a home, but we should leave the idea free to fulfill itself without any definite choosing of how, when, where, why. In this way, we pray aright, and when we so pray, we pray effectively. One more important element to the condition of asking. Along with knowing that what you really want, it's important to understand what your spirit really needs. What your spirit really needs. When stating your request, you must understand and honor the concept of integral need, a term used by Todd Michael. Look again at the miracle of the loaves and fish. The people in the crowd experienced a miraculous manifestation of food, but they were not present at the site of the miracle with the intention of being fed, not physically fed. They were there because they were seeking spiritual feeding. During the natural course of their search, they became physically hungry. In other words, their physical hunger was an integral part of a far more important purpose. Said another way, when we've heard this before, haven't we? Seek ye first the kingdom of God, then all things will be added unto you. Think for a moment of the personal desire, goal, vision, and we talked about this last week, so if you weren't here, think of one now. Think of a personal desire that you have, a goal or a vision. And this is something that you're going to work on all month long as we talk more and more about these conditions. Does it fit into the picture of the evolution of your soul? Does it serve the greater good of humanity? What are the feelings that you really desire to create by experiencing it? Think about it, and in a few minutes we'll go into silence and do a treatment. But first, we've got to go into condition number 4. We've got a lot of conditions here. Condition number 4, maximizing. So the next section of this lesson on creating miracles shows us that Jesus did not create the loaves and fish out of thin air. They did not appear from nothingness. Rather, the food which fed the crowd was an expansion of an existing supply. At verses 17 and 18 we read, the disciples said, "We have nothing here except 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish." Jesus said to them, "Bring them here to me." Imagine for a moment that you are in front of 5,000 hungry men, plus women and children. Imagine that you ask everyone in the crowd to hand over any food that might exist, and you are presented with 5 loaves and 2 fish. What would you be thinking at this point? Oh gosh. My guess was that we would all be pretty discouraged, right? This situation comes up in our lives all the time. It truly does. So it really shouldn't be anything new to us. We have a need or a desire, and we look at what we have with which to manifest that need or desire. How many times have we looked at what we already have, and then fallen into a state of despair and frustration because it simply wasn't enough? We always, not always, but sometimes tend to start from that place of not enough. A miracle worker perceives things differently. A miracle worker always sees the supply that exists as a perfect beginning. A perfect beginning. The miracle worker always uses the supply in hand to the very maximum. If we learn to work with what we have, more will be given to us. This is one of the great laws of the universe. The world constantly monitors our actions to see how we use the resources we are given to oversee. If we are good stewards and consistently use what we have to the maximum, more and more will be diverted into the channels of our lives. And we're not taken away from anybody else, because there's plenty. There's an abundance that is unexhaustible supply. And the lights keep working too. The basic universal law applies. Form follows thought. Like attracts like. If you focus your attention on what you have, and let's face it, we have so much more than we realize, your consciousness will attract more. If you focus on what you lack, you will attract more lack. Positive or negative, whatever you emphasize in consciousness always expands. Always expands. You cannot circumvent this principle. It works with mathematical precision. If you focus on lack 98% of the time by worrying and fretting, then try to correct the situation with a few correct the situation with a few scattered superficial affirmations. You're going to reap according accordingly, and your life will still be 98% lacking. Focus one pointedly on what you have and see it as perfect. See it as perfect. Use the resources you have at hand carefully, making every possible bit of use of them. Make sure you are seeing everything you have with gratitude and using it to its maximum. Look at your talent, your health, your knowledge, and your other intangible resources. These are every bit as important as your physical supply. Have you maximized the use of these profound gifts? If it is more financial resources that you desire, acknowledge and use wisely what you have. More health, acknowledge and nurture and be grateful for the health that you have right now. Because it's interesting. I think my father at 92 laments on all the things that he cannot do at 92, but he can do so much more than so many people his age. And I keep telling him to focus on that. Yes, you have to use your walker, Dad, but you can still walk. So be grateful for that. You can still, get around and go out and do things. Start with what you have and be grateful for that. A new home, love and bless and treat with TLC the home you currently have, and even if it's just a room that you rent or a bedroom or an apartment or wherever. Love and bless that. A different job, be the very best you can be at your current job. Start with what you have. A love relationship, be a kind, loving, considerate, compassionate person to your current friends, to everyone you know. Do this cheerfully, gratefully, and consistently as possible. And when you can do this 10% of the time, you will find that your reality is 10% healed. When you can do this 100% of the time, you will have entered the dimension of the miraculous, and you will have entered heaven. So now, a little review. We have the first 4 conditions of a miracle: emptiness, alignment, asking, setting the universe on notice of our desire through our words and feelings to call the law of attraction into action, maximizing by wisely using what we already have. Get in mind, right now, get into your mind, the dream, the vision, the goal that you've chosen to focus on this month. And let's do a treatment right now. So let's just take a deep breath. Visualize that goal, that vision. We're recognizing there is one God, one life, one omnipresence that permeates all life. And knowing that I am part of that life, I place my focus on that which I desire to experience, knowing it is the Father's good pleasure to give me the kingdom. I feel the excitement of accepting what I desire, and I feel the joy of accomplishment. As I visualize and feel this completed, I list all that is already in my possession that supports and inspires me toward that which I desire. I am so grateful for all of the good in my life and the good that just keeps on coming. For I know that the energy that is God can never be exhausted. I give thanks with a grateful heart for the gifts given, and I release this treatment into the law with great love and gratitude. And together we say, and so it is.